The family secret that turned my world upside down. Before we begin the story, make sure to subscribe to our channel and never miss more incredible stories every day. My mother opened the door and didn't let the man step inside. She pressed her palm to the frame and whispered, "Jamie, don't say that name." The badge caught the porch light. Detective Ruiz. I was still in my pharmacy scrubs, hands smelling like sanitizer from closing shift. My biggest worry that morning was rent. Now a detective stood on our steps, and my mother was acting like my own name was dangerous. "I'm not here to arrest anyone," Ruiz said. "I need to ask Jamie Park a few questions." My stomach dropped. "That's me." Diane's nails dug into my arm. Her smile stayed polite. "Detective, I think you have the wrong house." Ruiz didn't blink. County flagged a mismatch during an employment verification. It ties back to this address. Employment verification. My job. My health insurance. If my identity didn't match, I could lose everything. Maybe even get accused of fraud for simply existing. "What mismatch?" I asked. Diane's voice went sharp under the sweetness. "Jamie, go inside." I didn't, because Ruiz pulled a thin folder out and said, "I'm also looking into a sealed record from 2004. My throat tightened. "I was born in 1996. Ruiz glanced at my mother, then back to me. "According to what I'm holding, that depends on which paperwork you mean." Behind Diane, the hallway ended at the do not enter storage door we'd kept locked my whole life. No questions, no keys, no exceptions. My sister Tessa hovered behind it, half hidden, watching like she already knew how this story ended. Diane leaned closer, mint gum and panic on her breath. "If you talk to him, you'll destroy this family." Ruiz stepped down one stair, giving me space. "Jamie," he said softly, "I can't help you if someone's hiding documents." My phone buzzed. HR again. Urgent. 9 re-verification required. I hadn't even answered the last 3 emails. I looked at my mother's shaking hand on my sleeve and felt my world tilt. Ruiz showed me my birth certificate, except the name wasn't mine. If you met my mom at church potlucks or the pharmacy where I work, you'd call her sweet. Diane Park brought casseroles to sick neighbors and wrote thank you notes in perfect cursive. She hugged me too tight in public, kissed my forehead like I was still 8, and told everyone, "Jamie is my miracle." At home, love came with rules. Rule 1, no baby photos. Our hallway had frames, graduations, birthdays, prom, but nothing from my first years. When I asked once, Diane laughed like I'd told a joke. Cameras were expensive. Honey, we weren't like that. Rule 2, no hospital talk. Not about births, not about blood types, not about family medical history. When a nurse at my pediatric clinic asked if diabetes ran in the family, my mom answered for me, "Nope." Then in the car she snapped, "Stop volunteering information. Doctors write everything down." Rule 3, the storage room stayed locked. It was a thin door near the laundry, always shut, always with a little draft at the bottom. When I was a kid and slid a bobby pin into the lock like TV taught me, Diane caught me and didn't yell. She just stared and said, very quietly, "If you open that door, you won't like what you find." Tessa grew up absorbing those rules like oxygen. She was my little sister by 3 years, but she played second in command. If I asked questions, she rolled her eyes. "Why do you always have to make it weird, Jamie?" And then there was Uncle Ray. He wasn't really my uncle, not by blood, anyway, but he showed up every few months like a scheduled appointment. He fixed our leaky sink, brought Tessa gas money, and never stayed for dinner. When Diane called him, he came. I used to think that meant we were lucky. Now I'm remembering how he'd glance at the locked storage door before he left, like he was checking a cage. After Ruiz left that morning, Diane didn't cry or rage. She straightened the throw pillows, told Tessa to go to her room, and said, "We're not talking about this." "What are you hiding?" I asked. She smiled again, too bright. "Nothing you need to worry about." Then she walked to the storage door, slid a key into the lock, and paused. "I swear to God, Jamie," she said, "don't make me use this." The key was old brass with a blue plastic tag that said First County Bank in faded ink. Diane kept it in the ceramic jar by the stove where she also hid cash for emergencies, like we were still living through a recession. She must have forgotten it was there. Or maybe she thought I'd never touch it. I went to the bank on my lunch break, heart thudding under my scrub top. The lobby smelled like carpet cleaner and stale coffee. A woman behind the desk glanced at the tag, then at me. Safe deposit access requires ID, she said. I handed over my driver's license. She typed, paused, then typed again, slower. One moment. That pause felt like a siren. Is there a problem? I asked. She forced a professional smile. No, ma'am. Just verifying. They took me to a small room with gray walls and a camera in the corner. A banker slid a narrow metal box onto the table and left without a word. The key turned too easily, like it had been used recently. Inside was a thick manila envelope. No jewelry, no cash. Just paper, Diane's favorite weapon. The first page was a delayed certificate of live birth. It had my name printed as Jamie Park, but the filing stamp read August 19, 2004. I was 8 then. Next to it, in red ink, was amended with an authorization code, A17. Under that, a photocopy of a social security card. The number matched the one I'd memorized since I was a teenager. Except the name line said Jamie Reed. There was more, a discharge summary from St. Bridget Women's Center, dated 1996, with Diane's signature at the bottom. Except the doctor's name looked typed over another, like someone had used whiteout and a copier. A note was clipped to it, destroy originals. Keep copies only. My hands shook so hard I dropped the envelope, and paper slid across the table. I snapped photos anyway, dates, stamps, codes, because Ruiz's words rang in my head. People hide documents. When I left the bank, my phone lit up with a text from Tessa. Mom says come home now. The unknown text ended with 2 words that froze me. Anymore, Jamie. When I got home, Diane was waiting in the kitchen like she'd been posed there. Tessa sat at the table scrolling on her phone, jaw tight, eyes flicking up only to judge me. Diane didn't ask where I'd been. She didn't have to. Give me the key, she said. I kept my voice steady. It was in the jar. I assumed it was for emergencies, she cut in, smiling. And this is not an emergency. This is you snooping. I pulled out my phone and slid it across the counter, the photos open. The 2004 filing stamp. The red amended. The name Jamie Reed glaring like a prank. Her smile didn't crack. It just thinned. That's old paperwork, she said. It doesn't mean anything. It means my social security card has a different name, I said. It means you filed my birth record when I was 8. Tessa finally looked up. Oh my God, Jamie, you always do this. You find one weird thing and turn it into a whole drama. This isn't drama, I snapped. This is my identity. Diane reached for my phone. I held it back. Her voice stayed soft, the same tone she used when she told neighbors she was praying for them. You don't understand how the world works, she said. People see a mismatch. They assume the worst. You want Ruiz thinking you're committing fraud? I didn't do anything, I said. We did what we had to, she replied quickly, then stopped like she'd said too much. Her eyes flashed to Tessa, a warning. I leaned in. What did you have to do? Diane sighed, as if I was the burden. You were a sick baby. There were complications. Paperwork got delayed. That's all. Then why does it say Reed? She snapped then, the sweetness gone. Because I'm your mother, and I said so. Tessa stood, chair scraping. Mom, don't. Diane pointed at me. If you take this any further, you will ruin your sister's life, she said. You will ruin mine, and you will ruin yours. I stared at her. Are you threatening me? She stepped closer, voice dropping to a whisper. I'm warning you, Jamie. People disappear in paperwork all the time. Then she held out her hand again, palm up, patient as a judge. Give me the photos, she said, or I'll make sure Ruiz gets them first. The next day at work, my manager pulled me into the tiny office by the vaccine fridge. Jamie, she said, embarrassed. HR needs you to come in. Today. I walked down there expecting a schedule change. Instead, an HR rep slid a single sheet across the desk. We received a notice from E-Verify, she said. It says your social security number doesn't match your name. My ears rang. That's impossible. It happens, she said, too practiced. Usually it's a typo. We just need you to bring additional documentation within 3 business days. 3 days. I pictured Ruiz's folder, Diane's smile, the name Reed on the photocopied card. What if I can't? I asked. The HR rep's expression softened. Then we have to suspend you until it's resolved. Suspend me. No paycheck. No rent. No health insurance. And the worst part? In their system, I would be the suspicious one. When I got home, Diane had already opened my mail and left it on the counter like a warning. One envelope wasn't from my job. It was from the county courthouse. Notice of hearing. Petition to correct vital records. It read. The petitioner line made my stomach lurch. Diane Park. Attached was an affidavit, half-filled, with a place for my signature at the bottom. It basically said I acknowledged administrative errors and agreed to a correction without further inquiry. Tessa was in the doorway. Mom's just fixing it, she said quickly. Why are you making this harder? Because I don't know what it is, I said. Why is there a hearing? Why am I signing something that says I won't ask questions? Diane walked in carrying a plate of cut fruit, like we were about to have a normal family moment. This is for your protection, she said. If you sign, it stays quiet. Quiet for who? I asked. Her eyes went cold. For us. My phone buzzed again, Ruiz calling this time. I didn't answer because Diane's hand was already on the affidavit, tapping the signature line like a metronome. Then the front door opened, and Uncle Ray stepped in without knocking. Ray saw the affidavit and went pale. Ray's voice dropped. Don't sign. There's a reason she's rushing you. Ray waited until Tessa left the kitchen. Then he took the affidavit from Diane's hand like it was contaminated. You can't do this, he said. Diane's smile returned, sharper. Watch me. I expected Ray to argue. Instead, he looked at me, not her. Jamie, pack a bag, he said. Right now. Diane's head snapped toward him. Excuse me. Ray didn't raise his voice. That was his thing, quiet pressure. If she stays here, you'll corner her. You'll get her to sign. You always do. Tessa stormed back in. Mom is trying to help. She shouted. Jamie's going to get fired because she's being stubborn. My cheeks burned. I'm not stubborn. I'm scared. Diane set the fruit plate down with a thud. Then act like it, she said. Sign, and this ends. I looked at the affidavit again. It wasn't fixing. It was burying. It was me agreeing to never look behind the curtain. I'm not signing, I said. For a second, Diane's face went blank. Then she nodded like she'd decided something. Okay, she said softly. Then you can leave. It hit me like a slap. You're kicking me out. I am giving you space, she corrected, voice syrupy. Since you think your own mother is a criminal. Tessa folded her arms. You always ruin things, Jamie. Ray put himself between me and Diane. I'll take her, he said. Diane's eyes flicked to Ray, and something ugly moved there. Fear, maybe, or anger that he'd stepped out of line. If you do, she said, don't come back. I went to my room and shoved clothes into a tote bag. My hands wouldn't stop shaking. I pulled open my nightstand and found my passport. For the first time, I wondered if it was real. When I came back out, my phone had no service. Diane stood by the router with a satisfied look. Family plan, she said. My account. Ray grabbed his coat. We're going. As I stepped onto the porch, Diane called after me, sweet enough for neighbors to hear. Jamie, we did all of this for you. I turned back. For me, I said. Or for the story you needed? Diane didn't answer. She just lifted her phone and, right in front of me, tapped out a text with my name on it. Ray glanced at her screen and swore under his breath. She's messaging your HR department, he said, and she's not telling them the truth. Ray's place was small and smelled like sawdust and coffee. He didn't ask questions that night. He just gave me his spare bedroom and said, we start with records. In the morning, he drove me to the county office. You ask. I listen, he said. If anyone tells you to sign, you walk. The building was beige and fluorescent, the kind that makes you whisper without knowing why. I took a number and rehearsed. I need my birth certificate. Simple. Normal. The clerk behind the glass wore reading glasses on a chain. I slid over my ID and request form. She typed. Her fingers slowed, then stopped. I'm here for a certified copy, I said. Her eyes lifted to mine. Not curious, cautious. This record is sealed, she said. What? Why? Amended, she replied. Court ordered. My chest tightened. Amended when? She read from her screen. Filed August 19th, 2004. Amendment Code A17. That code again. I leaned closer. What does A17 mean? I can't interpret codes, she said. You'd need the petition file. Courthouse. Can I at least see what hospital is listed? I asked. She hesitated, then lowered her voice. St. Bridget Women's Center. Ray's jaw tightened at the name, just for a second. My skin prickled. That place closed years ago. She nodded once. Closed in 2001. Fire. Records transferred, allegedly. She pushed a printed slip through the slot. That's all I can provide without a judge. On the slip was a registrar's signature line labeled simply, Deputy Registrar. Underneath, do not release without judge's authorization. Ray's hand landed on my shoulder. Jamie, he murmured, we're done here. Outside, I stared at the slip until the letters blurred. Who approved this? I asked. Ray didn't answer right away. Then he said, someone who shouldn't have touched your file. My phone buzzed with an email from HR. We received additional information from your mother. And in the subject line, one word punched the air out of me. Fraud. HR didn't fire me right away. They put me on conditional shifts while they waited for Social Security to respond. Translation, we don't know if you're real, but we need you to count pills. I met Ruiz that afternoon in the police station lobby. No interrogation room, just a metal table and a tired detective. I'm not here to ruin your life, he said. I'm here because someone already tried. I showed him the bank photos, the delayed birth certificate stamped August 19, 2004, the red amended, the authorization code A17, the Social Security copy with Jamie Reed printed above the number I'd lived under. Ruiz exhaled through his nose. This is not a harmless paperwork glitch. He explained it in plain English. A Social Security number is issued to a name linked to a birth record. If the name doesn't match, employers get alerts. Banks get alerts. After enough alerts, the system assumes a crime. Identity theft, I said. Or a delayed birth registration used to cover one, Ruiz replied. A17 often means a correction involving parentage or adoption. Sealed records are common then. Adoption. The word scraped against everything I thought I knew. Diane's miracle suddenly sounded like branding. But why Reed? I asked. Why not just file me as Park? Ruiz tapped his tablet, then turned it toward me. He shielded most of the screen, careful, and pointed to a single line. This number was issued under Jamie Reed, he said, and it was flagged in 2010 after a death report. My mouth went dry. Death report. Ruiz didn't soften it. A child with that name was reported deceased. The number went inactive. Then, years later, it shows up attached to you. I gripped the table edge. So my Social Security number belongs to a dead kid. Ruiz held my gaze. That's what it looks like. Ray called me right then. I put him on speaker without thinking. What did you find? He asked. Ruiz spoke into my phone, calm but firm. Mr. Ray, if you know anything about a death report from 2010, tell her now. There was a long silence. Ray whispered. She chose that number because it was already buried. Ray took me to the public library because I didn't trust my own internet trail anymore. Diane paid for my phone plan. If she could cut my service, she could watch my searches too. We used Ray's prepaid hotspot and started with two phrases, St. Bridget Women's Center Fire 2001 and Jamie Reed Death Report 2010. Most links were dead. Then the library database pulled up an archived local article with a grainy photo of a clinic window blown black. Headline, Clinic Fire Destroys Records. Files transferred to County Registrar. The date was March 2001. Marla had said St. Bridget. My birth certificate photos referenced St. Bridget. But my mom claimed my complications were in 1996. Why did a fire 5 years later matter to my identity? Look at this, Ray murmured, pointing to the byline. Same reporter who covered county scandals. We asked for microfilm, and I scrolled through dusty pages until my eyes burned. I found a short notice from 2010 that made my stomach flip. County issues correction after deceased minor's SSN mistakenly reissued. No names listed, just a warning that incomplete documentation and delayed registrations could cause criminal investigations. That's me, I whispered, because who else could it be? Ray didn't argue. Then, buried in an archived community forum the library still cached, I found a post from 2008. Looking for updates on baby Jamie Reed. Closed adoption? Please DM. Under it, one reply simply read, don't. Diane will ruin you. My hands went numb. They were talking about Mom, I said. Ray's face tightened, like he was holding something back with his teeth. Jamie, he said slowly, your mom didn't steal you. I stared at him. Then why is my number tied to a dead kid? He lowered his voice. Because she chose the one no one would look for. That didn't feel like comfort. It felt like confirmation. Ray, I said, what happened before I became Jamie Park? He looked at the exit, then back at me. She was told to send you back, he whispered. And she refused. Back to who? Back to where? Ray's phone buzzed. He read one message and went pale. Diane found your bank photos, he said. And she's on her way here right now, he added, already standing. Diane didn't storm into the library. She texted, meet me at Barlow's Diner. Now. Alone. A second later, bring the key. Ray shook his head. Public place means she wants control, he said. We go together. Barlow's was bright and loud, the kind of place where people hear only what they want. Diane sat in a booth, hair perfect, hands folded, looking like a woman waiting for her daughter to apologize. Tessa was beside her, eyes puffy. Diane slid the courthouse affidavit across the table. Sign, she said. Ruiz backs off. HR calms down. We fixed the record quietly. Quietly for you, I said. So no one asks why my SSN belongs to Jamie Reed. The word Reed made Tessa flinch. That was my first real proof she knew more than she'd admitted. Diane's smile held. You're catastrophizing, she said. It was a clerical mess, and I cleaned it up. That's what mothers do. Ray leaned in. Diane, stop. You're cornering her. Diane's eyes cut to him. You don't get to talk, she hissed, then smoothed her face like a switch flipped. Jamie, she said softly, you were a sick baby. The system didn't help. I did what I had to do. What exactly did you do? I asked. Her jaw tightened. I kept you. Tessa grabbed my wrist under the table. Jamie, please, she whispered. Just sign and let Mom handle it. What would you do if your own name could get you arrested? I asked. Tessa's grip loosened. Diane reached into her purse and pulled out my passport. My passport, the one I'd packed. You left it at home, she said calmly. I was going to return it after you signed. My stomach turned. You went through my things. I'm your mother, she said, like it answered everything. And you're not thinking straight. Ray's hand hovered near the affidavit. Jamie, don't. Diane leaned forward, voice dropping. If you don't sign, she said, Ruiz digs, and he finds the part where you were never supposed to exist. She blinked like she'd said too much. Tessa's eyes went wide. My phone vibrated on the table with a new voicemail from Diane's number. The voicemail preview read, to Ray, the death report. I listened to the voicemail in Ray's truck with the volume low, like it could burn us. Diane's voice came through syrupy, then frantic. Ray, it's done, she said. The death report is filed, and the number won't ping anymore. Delete whatever you kept. If Jamie hears Reed, she'll start digging, and I can't do this again. My stomach flipped. She hadn't stumbled into a mistake. She'd engineered it. Ray didn't grab my phone or demand I delete it. He stared at the steering wheel until his knuckles went white. I told her not to, he said. She didn't listen. You knew, I whispered. He flinched. I knew she was desperate. I didn't know she'd pick a dead kid's identity. That was the first time he'd admitted the dead kid was real. I met Ruiz the same day and laid everything out like a crime scene. Bank photos with the 2004 stamp and A17 code, library printouts about the clinic fire and the county correction notice, and the voicemail Diane meant for Ray. Ruiz's jaw tightened. This is enough to open an investigation, he said. But you protect yourself first. Your employer will follow procedure. So will the state. What do I do? I asked. You don't sign away your rights, Ruiz said. He tapped Diane's affidavit. And you don't confront her alone. Ray cleared his throat. There's already a hearing scheduled, he said. She filed it. Ruiz nodded slowly. Good. Then we use her petition. We show up with evidence. We ask the judge for the petition file and the amendment basis. If she lies, it's on record. I texted Tessa one sentence. Come to the hearing and watch with your own eyes. She replied a minute later. Fine. But if you humiliate us, I'll never forgive you. I looked at Ruiz. If I expose her, I expose Ray too, I said. He's in that voicemail. Ruiz didn't flinch. Sometimes protecting someone means letting consequences land where they belong. The courthouse date on Diane's notice was circled in red, Monday, 9 a.m. Ruiz said, if the file's open, someone is still looking for you. Monday morning, Diane walked into the courthouse like she owned the air. Blazer, neat hair, folder hugged to her chest. Tessa followed, silent and stiff. When Diane saw Ruiz with me, her smile froze. Why is he here? Because your petition isn't just paperwork, Ruiz said. The judge called the case. Petition to correct vital record. Diane stood, voice soft and practiced. Your Honor, My daughter's record has clerical errors causing hardship. We're requesting a correction. The judge looked at me. Miss Park, do you agree? I don't know who I am on paper, I said. I'm not signing until I see the petition file and amendment basis. Ruiz stepped forward. Your Honor, we have evidence of an amended delayed birth registration filed in 2004 and a Social Security mismatch tied to a deceased minor. I placed the photos on the clerk's table. August 19, 2004 stamp, red amended, the A-17 code, the same SSN printed under a different last name. Ruiz added the library printout about the county correction notice. Then the voicemail transcript Diane never meant me to hear. The death report is filed. Tessa's voice cracked. Mom, what did you do? Diane's composure slipped. It's not what it sounds like, she said. Jamie was a baby. The agency was going to take her back. Agency? The judge asked. Diane swallowed. Foster care. The word landed like a verdict. I stared at her and finally understood the missing baby photos, the locked door, the way she treated paper like a loaded gun. Ruiz asked, Did you file a death report for the identity you used? Diane's eyes flicked to Ray like she was checking if he'd save her again. Ray stood, face gray. Diane, stop, he said. But Diane pointed at me, voice sharp with panic. If she hadn't dug, none of this would be happening. The judge leaned forward. Miss Park, she said, you may be a victim here. Ruiz's phone buzzed. He read one line, and his expression turned to stone. Your Honor, he said, the Jamie Reed case was never closed. After the hearing, nothing resolved neatly. It detonated. The judge didn't cuff Diane in open court, but she did issue an order. The petition file would be released to Ruiz, and the correction was continued until the state determined what my legal identity actually was. That afternoon, HR emailed one line. Administrative leave pending verification. It felt like being erased with a polite stamp. My bank flagged my account the same day. The teller asked for additional identity proof. I walked out with $20 cash and a shaking stomach. Diane walked out of the courthouse with her chin up and her eyes wet, like she was the injured party. Tessa followed her, then stopped and turned back to me. You did this, she said. You couldn't just let Mom fix it. Fix it by lying harder? I shot back. Tessa's mouth trembled. She said you were going to be taken away. She said she saved you. Ray stood beside me, silent, and his silence started to sound like agreement. Ruiz pulled me aside. If that foster case is tied to an open file, he said, there may be living relatives, or a missing person report that never closed. His words stayed in my skull all day, never closed. That night, Ruiz and county investigators served a warrant at Diane's house. I watched from Ray's truck across the street. They carried out boxes from the locked "Do Not Enter" room, binders, envelopes, old tapes. Diane cried loud enough for neighbors to hear. This is harassment, she yelled. I raised her. On the drive back, Ray finally cracked. I helped her once, he said, with the delayed birth filing. I thought it was temporary. I thought she'd undo it. I stared at him. You were part of it. Ray's eyes shone. I was trying to keep you safe. Safe. The word everyone used when they were really talking about themselves. My phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number. No greeting, just a screenshot of a case header. Jamie Reed, status, missing. It read, last contact, Diane Park. The week after the warrant felt like living inside a held breath. Ruiz couldn't tell me everything, but he gave me what I needed to survive. A letter stating I was cooperating as a potential victim, not a suspect. I handed it to HR with shaking hands. They didn't reinstate me, but they stopped using the word fraud. I went to the Social Security office with that letter, my ID, and printed bank photos like I was building a case against my own name. The clerk explained it slowly. If a number is tied to a death report, you don't fix it. You apply for a new record, and the old one becomes evidence. It was brutal and weirdly freeing. The lie couldn't follow me forever, but it also meant Jamie Park might not be mine to keep. I booked therapy that day because my chest wouldn't unclench. Ray drove me to every appointment. He didn't beg forgiveness. He just showed up, guilt-riding shotgun. One night, he slid a small envelope across his kitchen table. Inside was a key and a sticky note in Diane's handwriting. Storage. I took it from her purse years ago, Ray said. I couldn't bring myself to use it. I stared at the key until my eyes burned. I don't want to open it alone, I said. So we waited until Ruiz could be there legally. He warned me, quiet and firm. If you find documents tied to an open missing case, you hand them over. No exceptions. Tessa showed up at Ray's place the night before the search. Mascara smeared, voice raw. I didn't know all of it, she said. But I knew you weren't official. I was paperwork, I said. Tessa flinched. Mom said it was temporary. She said the state would take you back if anyone asked questions. And you believed her, I said. Diane called during that conversation. I let it ring out, then texted one line. All contact through Detective Ruiz. The next morning, Ruiz met us at Diane's house with a deputy and a warrant list. My palms were slick with sweat. Ruiz said, "Whatever's inside decides whether you get a new name." When the storage door finally opened, it didn't reveal treasure or monsters. It revealed binders. Rows of them, labeled in Diane's perfect handwriting, school, medical, tax, and one that made my knees go weak, read. Ruiz photographed everything before I touched it. Inside read were foster placement papers with my birth name blacked out, a copy of a death report form dated 2010, and a notarized statement from 2004 describing a delayed registration due to emergency relocation. In the margin, Diane had written, "Do not let her remember." There was also one photo of a baby with my eyes, taped inside like a confession. Tessa started crying behind me. "Mom told me you'd hate her if you knew," she whispered. "I don't even know who I'm supposed to be mad at," I said, and meant it. Accountability didn't come as one cinematic moment. It came as hearings and corrections. The court released the petition file, documented the fraud risk, and issued me a temporary identity letter while the state rebuilt my records legally. Social Security issued a new number tied to the corrected record. My employer reinstated me once the verification cleared. Diane didn't get a clean ending. She got consequences, loss of control, court orders, investigators in her life, and the humiliation she'd spent decades avoiding. The first time she tried to contact me directly, I blocked her without shaking. Ray cooperated fully. He didn't pretend he was a hero. He accepted what he'd done and tried, finally, to do the next right thing. I also learned something that still stings. Love can be real and still be harmful. Diane loved me, but she also built a cage out of paper. Tessa wasn't cruel. She was trained to protect the story. And my dignity had nothing to do with a last name printed above a number. If you suspect your family is hiding records, don't sign anything to keep peace. Make copies. Request files. Bring a calm witness. Treat your documents like you treat your health, seriously, early, and without shame.